And finally, Chris Greer from the NIST.
All right. Well, it's quite an honor to wrap up a panel like this. That's quite something. So this event today, I guess, is in some sense an opportunity for celebration. There are many of you in the audience who have worked many years and dreamed many dreams to get to this point. And so pat yourself on the back, give yourself some congratulations, and then that's quite enough. It's time to get to work. This really, to paraphrase Sir Winston Churchill, this is not the end. It's not the beginning of the end, but perhaps, just perhaps, it's the end of the beginning. And so we are then off on an important mission here. And the biggest threat to success here is losing track of that mission. So what is that mission? What we're hoping you will take on is the operation of a global data infrastructure. We don't need you to envision a global data infrastructure. We don't need you to request a data infrastructure. We don't need you to dream about a data infrastructure. We need you to operate a global data infrastructure. So stay focused on that goal. And a global data infrastructure will be just that, an infrastructure. And this, in the end, is not just about science. It certainly is about science and enabling science, but it's the second half of that phrase is infrastructure. And those who will implement this and solve many of the technical problems are not scientists, but they will be working very closely with scientists as they do that. And so these include those who will build the equipment on which this infrastructure runs, will design the software that enables this infrastructure to operate, and will do the indexing and curating and archiving tasks that are so critical to its function. That's a wide community of folks beyond the immediate scientists who will benefit. Also, to be sustainable and sustainable at scale, in the end, it must not be just a science infrastructure. It must create value of its own. This is not an instrument that has a fixed life and at the end of the cycle will be decommissioned. This is an infrastructure that should persist, should scale, and grow. And so I'm reminded of the investments that DARPA and Department of Energy and the National Science Foundation in the U.S. made in science networks in the 60s and 70s and 80s that is now that form the basis for the commercial infrastructure. It scales because it creates its own value today. So that's an important piece of this. So if you think about it, the mission here is to create an operating manual for a global data infrastructure, right? A set of pages that allow the operation of this infrastructure. And if you're not working on one of those pages, you're not necessarily contributing to the mission. So I work in the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and so standards are always on our minds there. And the pages of an operating manual look a lot like a standard, best practice, technology guidance, technical solution or implementation, a page of an operating manual. And these things have some key characteristics that I hope you'll keep in mind as you move forward in producing this manual of operating for this infrastructure. The first is that the things that you produce should address a well-defined need, right? Something that's tangible, that you can demonstrate is necessary. And the best evidence for that is you have people who say, if you were to do that, I'll adopt it. And that's evidence, convincing evidence of need. The second is that what you produce should be something that can be implemented by an organization or individual with average competence without doing any further research. So this shouldn't be a recommendation that only a research scientist could pursue. It should be something that an organization of average competence can implement in response to your product. Hopefully, what you produce will contain answers and not questions. We in the data world are great at asking ourselves questions. How will we give data authors credit for what they produce? Great question. We've asked it before. We don't need to ask it anymore. We agree that it's important. What are the answers? And one of the first steps is persistent identifier framework that allows us to trace the movement of a digital object over time as it's applied to many different uses and applications. So answers, not questions. Your recommendations should be specific and not general. Just saying, as we have said, there should be metrics and performance metrics. That is certainly true. That's a truism in and of itself. What will we measure specifically? What's a performance measure for data exchange? We need you to specify what a digital object is so that we can all agree when one moves, we can actually measure that. Those kinds of things. Answers, not questions, specific, not general. We heard earlier about the phenomenon of lock-in, of technologies where the instrument produces its own proprietary format, and exchanging data is problematic. So what we need are recommendations that are technology neutral and focused on measurable outcomes and not proprietary. And then finally, that your recommendations should provide options and enable multiple solutions so that what you're describing is the desired outcome or the performance or the property that should emerge from this recommendation, not the piece of software that should give you that result, not the particular commercial off-the-shelf product that will give you that result, but rather what is it that we're trying to achieve and how will we measure what it is we want to achieve. So providing options and enabling multiple solutions is key to the success of this global infrastructure. So this is an immense challenge that we've asked you to take on and that you've agreed to take on. I look forward to hearing the work that will take place over the next few days, but it is really the first step. And to remind you of what Carlos said, it's really important, one, to stop talking and get going. And two, you don't have to get it perfect, but you do have to get it done. Thank you very much for all the work you're going to do over the next few years.